Well, there has been an absence of conversation amongst black property practitioners in South Africa on how to transform the profession and the industry. However, the new challenge posed to black property practitioners over and above bringing about meaningful transformation in the profession is how to venture South African firms into other parts of Africa. Well, the conversation around Africa Rising has been the bugbear of all South African companies wishing to grow their operations into other parts of Africa, as well as global multinationals wishing to enter into Africa. Although transformation is critical, the South African government is faced with the challenge of ensuring that all members of society have an equal opportunity to participate in the economy, as well as to ensure that the country remains competitive and continues to attract foreign direct investment. However, to take me through this conversation this morning is the chairman of the South African Institute of Black Property Practitioners. That's Mr. Thomas Matlala. So good morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Melo.
Now, I did mention, of course, challenges of lack of transformation within the profession and the industry. And I mean, according to research by the Investment Property Data Bank for 2013 and 2014 states that out of a total of 261 non-executive and executive directors in the sector, only 53 are black and 189 are white. I mean, why is there lack of transformation? Why are we having this conversation in 2015? In
fact, you would realize that of the 53 that we've mentioned, most of those would be non-executive directors.
Right.
So they would not necessarily be involved in the day-to-day operations of those businesses. I think there are quite a number of reasons why it is like that. Firstly, there is recently at least we've seen it, there's a challenge with trying to get people to sign up to the property charter, or rather to sign up to the principles of the property charter. Now you'd realize and you'd remember that with the property charter what it said was we needed to ensure that after 5 years, which was when it was signed, which is 10 years ago, they said after 5 years we need to ensure that we have, I think it was about 40–45% of directors being black directors. It hasn't happened simply because people have not enforced it really.
And let's talk about some of those obstacles and challenges which are faced within the profession. I know that your vision as the South African Institute for Black Property Practitioners is to see more firms even venturing into Africa. What sort of stands in the way of that vision being accomplished?
South Africans we are very insular as a country, simply because of apartheid. What has happened is most of us have never ventured out of South Africa. So that's a challenge. The challenge is that we don't see that as a market. The second challenge is that we haven't grown institutions that are big enough to be able to take those opportunities on the continent. But the third one, really, which worries me, is that South African businesses don't realize that we have 55 million people in South Africa. We have close to 2 billion people on the continent. Now, once you do that comparison, you realize that there is a case to be made to invest outside of the country.
But surely, I mean, with policies and revised codes from the broad-based black economic empowerment by government, surely that should be helping you in alleviating those problems.
It does help. In fact, as SABC, what we did in the early days was we introduced to government, at the time it was Minister Stella Qau and Mr. Toko Didiza took it up. What we introduced to them was what is now called the 10-year lease policy. And the idea was, how do you get a black property person that does not have capital involved in the property sector and to own companies? That happened, and the interesting thing is, after that happened, 13 billion rands worth of companies, black-owned companies, listed on the JSE. This is between 2006 and 2011. That was stopped. So our view is, if we could continue with that, or if we did continue that in 2011, we'd be sitting probably at 20–21 billion rands worth of black-owned assets on the JSE. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we enforce the policies and we implement the policies that we have.
And let's talk about your AGM meeting. I understand that it's taking place on the 5th of November, at the Durban's ICC. What are some of the issues that you've prioritized on your agenda?
The first issue is going beyond borders. How do we take our black entrepreneurs and say to them, this continent belongs to you. It is your continent. Right. You need to be able to play in the continent. You need to be able to add value in those economies as much as we add value in the South African economies. That's one of the things. The other thing is we're looking at one of the establishments of public works, which is the PMT, Property Management Trading Entity, which government in 2006 took a decision to implement. It hasn't been implemented, or rather, it wasn't implemented for a long time. As SABC, what we did was we put our members there and we said to government, we need to implement this. And it has been implemented. It has been launched. It has a CEO. The CEO is one of the people that will be speaking there. So those are the two major issues that we'll be looking at.
All right. Now, I do also understand, I mean, I read an article where you were quoted as saying that, the sale of government infrastructure and property could be, one of the ways in which to assist in some of the challenges faced within the industry. Just kindly elaborate on that.
You see, government is the biggest owner and manager of property in the country. So when you have a player like that, what I call the big gorilla in the room,
Right.
that gorilla, when it shifts, it's able to change the dynamics in whatever sector it is. And what we're saying is, with government being the biggest owner and manager of property assets, if government implements good policies, government will be able to change the face, certainly, of the property market.
Alrighty then. Unfortunately, that's all the time we had for you. Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas Matlala, the chairman of the South African Institute of Black Property Practitioners. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.